These are the solutions to the even problems from the Chapter 7 Study Guide and Review in the textbook. So we'll start with number 12. Directions for number 12 say to write each percent as a fraction in simplest form, and the percent is 65%. To write the percent as a fraction, we know percent means per 100, so this is going to be 65 over 100. But then we want that in simplest form, so we reduce that by dividing the numerator and denominator both by 5, and we get 13 over 20. Okay, the next even problem is number 18. Number 18 says write each fraction as a percent, and the fraction is 4 over 15. And remember, there's a couple different ways you could do this. If you wanted to do this as a proportion, you could do 4 over 15 equals x over 100 and then cross multiply to get the percent. Or you could divide 4 by 15 to get a decimal and then move the decimal place twice to get a percent. Either of those will work just fine. So if we go ahead and divide this, 4 divided by 15 is 0.26666 repeating. And to change that to a percent, we move the decimal place over twice. And the directions say, actually the directions don't say what to round to, so we'll round to the nearest hundred. So 26.6, and because these are sixes repeating, that will round up to a 7%. Okay, the next one is number 24. Number 24 is also writing the fraction as a percent, and the fraction is 36 over 27. And for this one, because we did the last one by dividing and moving the decimal over, for this one we'll go ahead and do this with a proportion. So 36 over 100, or 36 over 27 equals x over 100. And we cross multiply, and we get 27x equals 3600. And then divide by 27, and we get that x is equal to 133.333 repeating. So again, we'll round that to the nearest 100. So 33%. Okay. The next even problem is number 30. Number 30 says write each decimal or fraction as a percent, round to the nearest tenth if necessary. And number 30 is 0.37. Well, we know to change this to a percent, we just move the decimal place over twice, so that is 37%. The next even problem is number 36. It says use the percent proportion to solve each problem. We want to know what is 63% of 130. Okay, so this one we will do with a percent proportion. We know that the percent always goes over 100. And then to figure out where to put the 130, we're trying to find 63% of 130. And we always find a percent of a whole. So the 130 will have to be the whole, and we're looking for the part. So we'll cross multiply. Here we get 100x equals 63 times 130. Which is 8,190, and we'll divide by 100, and we get x is equal to 81.9. The next one is number 42. Number 42 says to find the percent of each number mentally. And this one is asking for 1% of 167. Well, 1% of this would just be 1.67. because we know that there's 100% in a whole, so it's basically just dividing this by 100, which just moves the decimal place 2 times, so 1.67. Alright, number 48 is the next one. Number 48 says to solve each problem using a percent equation. And 48 says 17 is what percent of 68? So if 17 is equals what percent, so we don't know the percent, of is multiplication, 68. Alright, and to get x, we'll divide both sides by 68. And we get 0.25 equals x. But this says what percent, so we actually want this number as a percent. So we'll move the decimal place over twice. We get 25%. Alright, the next one is number 54. Number 54 says find the percent of change. Round to the nearest tenth if necessary, then state whether the percent of change is an increase or decrease. And this is going from 55 pounds to 24 pounds. And remember, for percent of change, you want the amount of the change over the original amount. So the amount of the change here from 55 to 24, if we subtract these, that's a change of 31. And over the original amount, which is 55. We want this as a percent, so we'll go ahead and divide these. 31 divided by 55 is 0.5636. And that repeats, but we'll just that many places is enough. And then we'll change this to a percent by moving 2 places to the right. And it says to round to the nearest tenth. So instead of 56.36, we'll round the 6 will tell this 3 to round up to a 4. 56.4%. And if we're going from 55 down to 24, that is a decrease. Okay, and then number 60. Number 60 says find the simple interest to the nearest cent. So we know we want the simple interest formula, I equals PRT. And it says we're finding the simple interest. It says the amount invested is $5.75. The rate is 6.25%, so as a decimal, 0.0625. And the time is 7 years. Okay, and if we multiply all three of these, we get that the interest is equal to, rounded to the nearest cent, $251.56. Okay. And number 66. In order to create the circle graph for number 66, we first need to find the degrees represented by each of those sections. So we have 41 through 50, 51 to 60, 61 to 70, 71 to 80, and 81 plus. Well, if you add up the total number there, 13 plus 33 plus 33 plus 16 plus 5, they actually get 100, which makes this really nice because even though these are actual numbers of senators, because it's out of 100, it's the same as the percent. If that should make sense. 13 out of 100 is the same as 13%. 33 out of 100 is 33%. So we already know the percentages on each of these. 13%, 33%, 33%, 16%, and 5%. So now we just need to figure out what those are in degrees. So since degrees are out of 360, we can multiply each of these numbers by 360 to get the degrees. So we change this to a decimal, we do 0.13 times 360, and we get that this is 46.8 degrees. Same thing here, we'll do 0.33 times 360, and we get that that is 118.8 degrees. And since this is the same thing, it'll be the exact same number, of course. And this one is 0.16 times 360, which is 57.6 degrees. And the last one is 0.05 times 360. And that is equal to 18 degrees. Okay, so now, and if you wanted to double check, you could add all 5 of these numbers and it should add up to 360 degrees. But now we can go ahead and create our circle graph. So, the first thing we need is a circle with the center marked. And then we will need to use our protractor to create the right size angles. Okay. Now, because we're not going to be able to be exact, we are going to need to do a little bit of rounding here. The problem is, if you notice, all of the ones with decimals have numbers that will round up. And if we round every single one of these up, we're going to end up with more than 360 degrees. So what I'm going to do to make this a little bit easier, we need to round one of these down. So we're going to round 57.6 down to 57 degrees. But everything else we'll go ahead and round up. So this will be 119 degrees, 119 degrees, and 47 degrees. Okay, so remember, if you're doing this with your protractor, you need to first draw a line that will be basically your starting point from the center out to one of the edges. And then use your protractor to measure the first angle. So this will be 47 degrees. So you have your first section that measures 47 degrees. The next section, you'll use the first line as the starting point as 0, and then measure, in this case, 119 degrees for the next angle. 119 degrees. Okay, that's pretty close. Okay, and then the second one is also, or the third one is also 119 degrees. Okay. And then the next one is 57 degrees. And the last one should be that remaining 18 degrees. Okay. And we typically like to label our circle graphs with what each segment represents. So the 47 degree part would be, 47 degrees would be the 41 to 50 age group. And then the first section here that's 119 degrees, this is the 51 to 60 age group. This one is 61 to 70. This is 71 to 80. And this is 81 plus. And we usually also label these with the percentages. And now just using the protractor that I use, it gives you the degrees. I wouldn't actually write these degrees on your circle graph. But we would like to have the percentages for each one. So this one is 13%. And these are each 33%. The 71 to 80 range is 16%, and the 81 plus is 5%. Your circle graph should look more or less like that.